This is CBC Nova Scotia News.
One person, one record. The long-awaited electronic medical record system is set to launch at the IWK Health Centre. Forest cleanup. What happens to the thousands of hectares of burned wood from the Long Lake wildfire? And saying goodbye. Family and friends gather for the funeral for Nova Scotia curling great Colleen Jones.
Temperatures will recover throughout the weekend. Quiet conditions overall with a few showers and flurries in the mix. Your full forecast is coming up.
Good evening. Nova Scotia's $365 million electronic medical record system will go live for the first time Saturday. The system is launching at the IWK Health Centre before beginning to connect to other healthcare sites around the province next year. Michael Gorman has the details.
Well, I'd say the general vibe in the place is one of anticipation. I'm excited. This has been a long time coming, and a lot of work has gone into making this transition.
Dr. Krista Jangard acknowledges some nerves among staff, but she believes they're ready. Saturday morning will mark the debut of an electronic medical record system that's been years in the making. The province announced a $365 million contract with Oracle Cerner Canada almost 3 years ago. The system creates a single digital record for patients, doing away with mountains of paper. It also means a patient's history is there each time they see a new provider and no matter what site they attend.
That's the number one thing. It isn't a separate episode of care. You have a journey of care. And it can be connected over geographies and over providers.
Jangard says providers and staff have been training through the fall to prepare. While those working in the system are going to notice changes, she says other than the potential of some initial delays, patients and families probably won't.
This is a system for ordering things, for registering things, for making notes. This isn't care. The care that's being done, these teams know how to do. This is a system and a tool that supports that care.
The system will eventually link all healthcare sites across the province. That means that when a child goes to hospital in New Glasgow, for example, staff at the IWK will be able to access that record. Go live for the Nova Scotia health sites has been delayed several times and is now slated to begin in May. Michael Gorman, CBC News, Halifax.
The 13 Nova Scotia Mi'kmaq chiefs say the provincial government's calls for a crackdown on illegal cannabis dispensaries, including on-reserve dispensaries, misunderstands treaty rights. A letter released today from the Assembly of Nova Scotia Mi'kmaq Chiefs says, quote, although our perspectives may differ, it's important to state that the province does not govern our communities. We have a right to self-governance and self-determination. It goes on to say, quote, this is a clear example of what happens when the province will not come to the table with us. On Thursday, Justice Minister Scott Armstrong called on police to step up enforcement and shut down illegal cannabis shops. Armstrong sent a letter to the 13 Mi'kmaq chiefs asking for their cooperation. McGillivray Injury and Insurance Law has launched a class action lawsuit against Nova Scotia Power over the utility's data breach and bill estimations. The firm filed a statement of claim with the Supreme Court of Nova Scotia today. The statement says Nova Scotians trusted Nova Scotia Power with their personal information and their money, and the lawsuit seeks to hold the utility accountable. The class action lawsuit has not yet been certified in court. Meanwhile, earlier this week, Premier Tim Houston called on the Nova Scotia Energy Board to launch a formal official investigation into the utility's billing methodology, its consumer protections, potential penalties, and possible financial relief to affected customers. The man carrying a gun that prompted an emergency alert and residents to shelter in place in Enfield is facing more charges after the firearm was recovered. On Saturday, RCMP officers responded to a report of a man with a sawed-off shotgun on Oldham Road. After an extensive search, 39-year-old Michael Franklin Garden-Cole was arrested without the gun. On Tuesday, a resident located a sawed-off shotgun and ammunition hidden on a logging road. Garden-Cole had previously been charged with multiple offenses in relation to the incident. With the Long Lake wildfire in Nova Scotia's Annapolis County now under control, the cleanup has begun. So what happens to the thousands of hectares of forest that was burned? The CBC's Ali Thompson went to West Dalhousie to find out.
I'm in a part of Nova Scotia that was devastated by a wildfire just a few months ago. And this might look like a typical forestry operation, but here's why it's not.
The Nova Scotia government is working with the forestry industry to salvage wood from the Long Lake wildfire, a first-of-its-kind project for the province. And they invited us to see what they're up to. Despite being burnt, the province says this wood has market value and will be turned into lumber and siding. And what's unique about all this is that most of it sits on Crown land.
The idea here is to try to, turn something devastating on the landscape into something positive. If we can capture some of the dead and dying timber and turn it into lumber and maybe rebuild homes, that's a positive thing.
More than 8,500 hectares were burnt in the wildfire, which is still not fully extinguished. The bulk is licensed to West4, which manages forestry in western Nova Scotia. This forest was in various stages of growth and destined to be harvested anyway. Officials say the project ensures the wood doesn't go to waste.
Why would you cut a tree over here today that's green, has green needles and can live for tomorrow when you have one right beside it that's already on the ground, dead and burnt? That's just straight common sense.
The wood is headed to various mills in western Nova Scotia. Natural Resources says some parts of the tree are intentionally left behind to decompose, providing nutrients to the forest soil. But time is of the essence. The wood does start to decay after 8 to 12 months. Harvesting wood for sale after a wildfire does happen in other jurisdictions, including British Columbia. The Nova Scotia government says this project has a patchwork approach, meaning younger trees will be left and protected areas will remain untouched. The province is paid a stumpage fee for the wood harvested on Crown land. Those fees are expected to amount to more than $3 million, which goes to provincial coffers.
We will have this cleaned up, we will have it regenerated, and we will have a much healthier forest than if we don't do anything with this.
Salvaging operations will take place over the next several months to make way for new trees that will be planted in the coming years. Ali Thompson, CBC News, West Dalhousie.
All right, Ryan Snoddon with us here now on what was a cold day in Nova Scotia. What's the weekend looking like?
Yeah, the weekend is looking milder. That's the good news, Tom. Temperatures back on the rise, though a very cold night tonight. Temperatures on Saturday recovering. We're back fairly close to the freezing mark with light winds as well. We're going to see some sunshine on tap. That's going to help. And then some increasing clouds, flurry chances for western areas of the province and pushing into central Truro and Halifax as well. Cooler in through the northeast. Sunday, we'll actually see temperatures rising a little bit above the freezing mark. So definitely a warm up for this weekend, back closer to seasonal. Chances for showers and flurries on Sunday. And this is the timing. So there's the area of high pressure that's helping to bring in this milder air mass as well as this low that's coming in from the west. The shower and flurry chances will actually be greatest for Saturday night in through early Sunday. The front slides through. We'll see some clearing into Sunday afternoon as well. And then watching a system that's going to be tracking in from the Gulf of Maine to our south. And boy, Monday is all of a sudden looking interesting. We'll talk about that with your 7-day forecast coming up.
We'll want to know more about that. Okay, thanks so much, Ryan. Talk soon. A year and a half after pieces of the Mont Blanc were discovered during dredging in the Halifax harbor, plans for what to do with some of them are starting to take shape. The Mont Blanc was the ship that exploded in the 1917 Halifax explosion. The anniversary of that disaster is tomorrow. The CBC's Richard Woodbury reports.
The Naval Museum of Halifax is located in the North End. At the time of the Halifax explosion, the building was a hospital that treated victims. 2,000 people were killed and 9,000 injured in the December 6, 1917 blast. Soon, the museum will house a car-sized chunk from the Mont Blanc. It's estimated to weigh around 725 kilograms.
So it's a really cool, tangible way that people can touch and see and be next to really get a sense of how awesome the force of the explosion was.
The blast leveled 2 square kilometers of the city. In the summer of 2024, dredging at Irving Shipyard in Halifax turned up more than 100 pieces of the Mont Blanc. The pieces are considered historically significant because of their size. Marilyn Davidson Elliott lives in North End, Halifax. Her father was blinded in the explosion when he was just 2.5. She'd like to see a piece of the Mont Blanc displayed at the Halifax Explosion Memorial Bell Tower at Fort Needham Park.
I can't imagine anything much more powerful than having a real piece of the Mont Blanc there.
The city previously committed to taking 2 small Mont Blanc fragments measuring less than 15 centimeters in size. When later asked if it had any plans to take a larger piece for the Halifax Explosion Memorial Bell Tower, the city spokesperson did not answer the question. As someone who gives talks on the Halifax explosion, Davidson Elliott requested a piece of the Mont Blanc to use for her presentations. She was given a 33-inch piece of steel plating that weighs around 15 kilograms and 2 rivets.
And so what stands out to you about this?
The ripping and tearing on the edges, the rippling, if you spin it this way, the power and the force of the explosion took this heavy gauge steel plating and just ripped it to shreds. And this is one of those shredded pieces.
In a statement, the Department of Communities, Culture, Tourism and Heritage said it's speaking with museums, community groups, and others to see if they're interested in using the pieces for education or exhibits. But with so many pieces found, the province said it's likely that most of the recovered fragments will have to be reburied in the harbour. Richard Woodbury, CBC News, Halifax.
The Nova Scotia government is launching a program to help new farmers gain access to farmland. The 3-year pilot project includes 4 streams aimed at overcoming barriers to securing more land. They include a low-cost land leasing option for new farmers and those looking to expand, as well as financing and startup loans. The program will be delivered by the Nova Scotia Farm Loan Board. Parks Canada says it saw a 13% increase in visitors while the Canada Strong Pass was in effect over the summer. The pass offered free admission to all national parks and sites maintained by Parks Canada. The pass was introduced as many Canadians were opting not to visit the U.S. due to the ongoing trade war with President Donald Trump. Ottawa says it will bring back the Canada Strong Pass later this month from December 12th to January 15th. It will also return in the summer of 2026. World champion curler and CBC reporter Colleen Jones was remembered on Friday at her funeral in Halifax. She died on November 25th after a 3-year battle with cancer. Her husband, Scott Saunders, gave the eulogy at St. Agnes Roman Catholic Church.
We come to honor the life and love of Colleen Patricia Jones.
Our marriage was a true partnership. She covered for me as much as I covered for her. And it became second nature and routine for us to do this for each other. As long as the boys got to their events, their games, practices, tournaments, no matter where they were, we could be comfortable and relatively free to pursue our other interests and career. Colleen was exceptional at managing all this. Her office, her makeup room, and booking network all ran from the front seat of her car. And while in the car in traffic, she could book an interview, put on her makeup, arrive just in time on 2 wheels to some sort of on-air hit, much to the relief of the CBC staff that were nervously awaiting her arrival. But this was second nature. She did this all the time.
She could make a story out of anything as long as there was a human being at the center of it. And sometimes she would go out and we'd say, what is the story you're doing? And she'd say, oh, don't worry, I'll bring back gold. And she would, and it would be, she could talk to anybody. And she would go on the water, underwater, on the bike. You know, she made her videographers bike around the Cabot Trail. She was just absolutely magic.
You know what, the word legend is used, I think, way too often these days by the younger generation. we have lost a true legend, not just in this province, but across Canada. And in 100 years, what she did will still be remembered with great fondness.
Ryan Snoddon back with our full weather forecast.
This weather update is brought to you in part by Atlantic Lottery's iGames. Play hundreds of games on the Atlantic Lottery app or at alc.ca.
All right, let's dive a little deeper into that weather forecast because there is lots to talk about. Ryan Snoddon back with us now. Yeah, really chilly day.
Yeah.
We're kind of out of practice with this a little bit, aren't we? That was a real Arctic blast.
That's right. Wind chill values this morning into the minus 20s, and it was bitter for sure. You know, because the wind was so strong this morning, that's really what made it. Let's have a look at where our highs ended up. Yeah, that's about it. 5, -5, -6, -7, -9 was as warm as it got. Amherst and Antigonish. And yeah, you can see that this evening temperatures are very chilly as well. We're already into the minus double digits in through the Parsboro area, Amherst, and across to Antigonish. And as we factor in the winds, which are persistent from the northwest, 20 to 30, even 30 to 40 in through Cape Breton, and 50 at Grand Etang, gusting 70 there, as well as Port Hawkesbury. Those wind chill values are obviously very chilly, deep into the minus teens across the northeast. A little bit milder down towards the southwest, still near -9 in through places like Yarmouth. Now, looking at the weather systems map, those onshore flurries and squalls continue for Inverness County. Those are going to be coming to an end, though, as we move through the next couple of hours as the winds lighten through the overnight as this area of high pressure comes in. We've got this next frontal boundary, which is bringing yet another round of colder air into the mix. Saskatchewan into the minus teens. Calgary at -8. Edmonton at -14. Yellowknife at -31. Yes, winter is upon us here across Canada. Vancouver just at 8 degrees. St. John's -7. It's chilly everywhere. Now, as we look at the forecast for tonight, temperatures -5, the low in through Yarmouth, but rising overnight tonight in through the Tri-County area as the winds shift to light southerly. -8 to -12 for many, but we'll be into the -13, 14, 15 range. Colchester, Cumberland, and through inland areas of Pictou County and into the Antigonish County area as well. So note the onshore flurries and squalls coming to an end. I've got the wind gusts on here as a pretty good gauge, I think, in terms of the winds have been a big factor for us. So, of course, we'll show you the temperature forecast in just a second. But as we look at the hour by hour here, you can see the winds easing. And so the snow squalls coming to an end for you folks in through Cape Breton and Inverness County. Note for tomorrow, lighter winds to start the day across the mainland. Becoming a southwest wind, though, with some gusts in the 20-30 range in through the southwest for tomorrow afternoon. And note this chance for some flurries, Digby, Yarmouth, up into the valley, also back towards the Halifax area and Truro. This is going to be that southwest part of the province where we will run the chance for some of those flurries throughout the day tomorrow. That risk will extend back into eastern areas by the time we get to Saturday evening. Temperatures tomorrow are going to be back near the freezing mark. So it is looking a little milder here even than it was 24 hours ago. So Saturday's pretty close to seasonal, and we'll take that after that very chilly start. Wind chill values Saturday morning are still going to be into the minus double digits and teens in the east. And for Saturday afternoon, not much of a wind chill factor here as the winds are going to be light. Sunday, we've got temperatures of 1 to 2 on the plus side, a chance for a shower mixed with a flurry as this frontal front comes through. Sunday, actually Saturday night, we'll see a chance, and then Sunday morning as well as that weak front comes through. On the other side of that front, though, the colder air coming in. And as that colder air spills into the region, we've got a clipper system that's going to hit the Gulf of Maine and ride that colder air. And so the question is, how quickly does it develop and where does it track? This is the European model. Note how far south it is, almost south of Sable, and doesn't really wind up into a system until it's heading out towards the Grand Banks. So this would just bring us a little dusting. The American model, the Canadian model, not only are earlier to develop the system, really taking shape as it moves into the Gulf, but they're much closer to the Nova Scotia coastline. This would be an impactful snow event for Monday. We'll put it that way. Tough to talk about totals, but 5, 10, maybe 15 potentially if this solution is correct. Unfortunately, this is, again, the forecast models are spread wide on this one. So stay tuned for updates on the weekend to the forecast. I'll update if there is going to be a system. cbc.ca/Nova Scotia will have a story on it, and you can see showers and flurries with temperatures rising mid next week, Tom. But boy, winter's settling in here.
Stay tuned indeed. Okay, thanks so much, Ryan.
Thank you.
Well, NB Liquor is under fire for a holiday advertisement that appears to have been AI generated. And the minister responsible for the Crown Corporation has asked them to pull the ad while they talk about the future use of generative artificial intelligence. The CBC's Silas Brown has more.
This social media ad posted by NB Liquor is drawing criticism for its use of AI.
Bring a little extra holiday cheer to any get-together this season with a gift from ANBL.
So NB,
oh
my God, they're not even
AI. Like I first saw it on my Facebook because I still use Facebook.
Have you guys seen that, the AI one?
And it's very clearly AI. Like it's not even that new AI that's really good.
But it's taking jobs away from everybody. That's the scary part for me.
NB Liquor said it wanted to be more efficient and to manage costs. They say AI didn't replace our team or our creative direction. Our concept, story, and standards still guided the entire process. It helped us experiment with a different technique, much like we do with animation or other creative approaches.
I went from confusion to anger to kind of just feeling really sad that, you know, we have so many talented artists that they could have instantly hired and come up with something better.
That's UNB film professor Robert Gray, who took to social media with his criticisms of the video. Gray says he's disappointed that the Crown Corporation opted not to use New Brunswick talent, but also sees it as a missed opportunity to create something that really reflects New Brunswick.
There's an opportunity here to actually tell New Brunswick stories, right? To connect with New Brunswickers. I mean, they've created an ad that could have been used by anybody anywhere could be put up for anybody anywhere in the world. And it's got the lowest amount of impact and the lowest amount of anything. Like, there's no story to it. There's no identity to it, right?
Luke Randall, the minister responsible for NB Liquor, says that the ad is no longer being used for paid social media spots.
I reached out to ANBL and asked them to have a conversation around the use of AI in this particular instance. This is an ongoing national issue. I had concerns, and they have been very responsive in having that conversation with me.
Especially with the bigger organization like NB Liquor and all other entities, they should be careful what they are using for the AI, especially on those video messages to the public.
I just don't understand why they couldn't have used real people. And AI kind of bothers me, to be honest, because everything I watch now, whether it's reels or whatever, at the end of the day, I'm questioning it going, well, is it real or is it not real?
Randall says that the government does have an AI policy, but this is the first time he's seen an AI avatar be used, and that the government will have to think about how to address that in the future.
Coming up, temporary foreign workers, why some in the restaurant industry want the government's cap to be lifted. This week, CBC News reported that for the last 18 months, Tim Hortons and its parent company have been lobbying MPs to allow more temporary foreign workers into the country. The company says its business was hit hard by the pandemic and continues to face what it calls unprecedented labor shortages. Well, to learn more about the impact of fewer TFWs on the food service sector in this province, we're joined by Natasha Chestnut of the Restaurant Association of Nova Scotia. So, Ms. Chestnut, I know you're reading the headlines, but you have a handle on the situation here. Is it as dire as Tim Hortons describes it?
Well, one of the things to consider is when we're talking about these immigration reductions, and they were quite significant. So in the new year, it was 50% reductions across the board. We know recently, moving forward, we're going to see further reductions into 2026. So it's not just the quick service and franchise businesses that are feeling the impact. It's also going to be hurtful to others in the industry. So your smaller, independent, owner-operated restaurants, like your mom and pop shops, your family-owned businesses, they're also feeling that. And when we talk about immigration and those reductions, again, the focus in the headlines with Tim Hortons has been around the temporary foreign workers, but it's across the board. So that's also impacting the numbers for the Atlantic immigration program. So that went down 50%. The Provincial nominee program, which our industry in particular has not been able to access since April of 2024. So that's significant and that is impactful. Another challenge that we do hear in the industry from operators, and we hear this quite regularly when operators will reach out, is in particular is some of these wait times. So I'll talk specifically around the AIP, the Atlantic Immigration Program, but a lot of these will have an existing employee. That employee has been working with them. It's going really well. That's a valued employee. They're putting in their application to renew that work permit in a timely fashion. But because of these really prolonged wait times, what's happening is the work permit is expiring before an answer is received. And that's really unfortunate because then they are losing that employee. So that employee is losing their job opportunity, but that employer is also losing a valued employee.
And so what are they saying? What are those restaurant owners saying about the urgency around all of this?
Well, it's causing concern because what we're going to see in 2026 is we're going to see more reductions come into place. So it's not just right now what it looks like, it's also looking at next year and the year after. When you look at food service and accommodation for Nova Scotia, the job vacancy, there's about 2,500 positions opened. And further to that, for temporary foreign worker, that is 3% of our workforce. 3%. It's not a huge percentage, but it's a really important, critical percentage. And a lot of that, when we're talking about that, it's cooks and chefs and managers. Those are really, really critical roles to the operation of a restaurant. We do not have the labor pool here to fill all of those roles.
Do you feel like you're fighting against a political tide in some ways that supports less immigration right now?
It's definitely challenging. So when the announcements were made, one of the most challenging things is the announcements are made and there's really no plan in place for how to support workforce development. There's also there's not much consideration for our industry, but also how our industry is different than other industries. And further to that, when you look at Atlantic Canada, specifically to Nova Scotia, we have unique challenges and we have unique labor needs. And to point those out, that would be things like the seasonality component in our industry. So those businesses that are only open maybe 6 months of the year and then close the other 6 months. If you go from one end of our beautiful province to the other, a lot of rural and remote areas, and they don't necessarily have, the labor pool either. Another thing that is something important to consider for the industry would be tourism. So we had a record high year for tourism, food and beverage, #1 contributor to the tourism revenue. We're a really, really big piece of the pie there. And what ends up happening is you have businesses in Nova Scotia that would have a certain level of staffing through part of the year, but then tourism really peaks. Right? So now you're looking at doubling, tripling your staff during these peak tourism seasons. And again, immigration, it's not the only way to recruit, but it has certainly been a beneficial and an important element of how we recruit. And again, especially on those much needed positions, as I said, around the cooks, the chefs, and some of those management roles.
Yeah, and as you say, the clock is ticking on the next tourism season as well. Natasha Chestnut of the Restaurant Association of Nova Scotia, appreciate your thoughts on this today. Thank you very much.
No problem. Thank you.
Coming up, Prime Minister Mark Carney talked trade with President Donald Trump today while on the sidelines of the FIFA World Cup draw. And Singing for Health, how a Canadian study is helping stroke survivors find their voice again. Welcome back. Mark Carney is in Washington, where he shared the spotlight with Donald Trump and Mexico's president at the FIFA World Cup draw. While the focus was on one of the world's biggest sporting events, the American president took the opportunity to talk trade. He met with Carney and Claudia Sheinbaum privately. This comes less than 2 months after Trump called off trade talks with Canada. Ashley Burke has more.
Two leaders coming together for a major sports event while still far apart on tariffs. nowhere near the negotiating table. This is the second time Mark Carney's come face-to-face with Donald Trump since Ontario's anti-tariff ad angered the president. He blew up talks in October to lower his tariffs on Canadian industries hit hard. This moment a chance for Carney to try and warm up relations and clear the air.
Discuss trade. Yeah, we'll discuss trade. We get along very well. Thank you, everybody. Very much.
Yeah, the name of the country.
Carney sharing the stage with the U.S. and Mexico.
Oh, Canada! Oh, congratulations.
3 trade partners showing a sign of unity at the FIFA World Cup draw.
The country is excited. We're just going to get more excited. Can't wait to welcome the world.
The leaders seen in a private viewing box at the Kennedy Center in Washington, appearing to have a good time.
A lot of observers may think that doesn't go with the whole elbows up approach, but when you're with this president, you want him happy, you want to flatter him, and that will hopefully lead to good outcomes.
But the Prime Minister's office kept expectations low. There's no sign publicly that Trump wants to resume talks.
Well, what I hear is, America's fine with where they have us. And it seems to me that maybe we're fine with where we have us, with the exception of wanting to bring down those tariffs on the industries that are being whacked.
The dealmaker who helped broker the Canada-US-Mexico trade agreement urging caution.
We need to be patient. Now is not a time when we're going to get a very good deal out of the U.S., but I think conditions will improve over time.
The 3 leaders met behind closed doors for about 45 minutes. The question that remains, whether that time helped further Canada's interests. Ashley Burke, CBC News, Ottawa.
New data from Statistics Canada says the national unemployment rate fell to 6.5% in November. The economy added an unexpected 54,000 jobs, though most of them were part-time. The new rate is a 16-month low, and it was the second straight month in which unemployment dropped. The average hourly wage is now $37 an hour, a 3.6% increase from this time last year. The Bank of Canada's next interest rate announcement is on Wednesday. Russian President Vladimir Putin's state visit to India is raising eyebrows internationally, and that puts the world's largest democracy in a tough position. New Delhi must find a way to stay on good terms with both of its major trading partners. Salima Shivji has that story.
The warmest of greetings reserved for close friends. A hug from India's Narendra Modi, who rarely greets leaders at the airport. Before the summit truly kicked off, a 2-day visit high on optics. For Russia's Vladimir Putin, the grand welcome confirmation he has allied support despite the war in Ukraine. For India, it's a diplomatic tightrope, honoring a long-standing relationship with Russia, its biggest defense supplier, while trying not to annoy the U.S., whose steep tariffs on Indian exports at 50% are hurting many industries. Those tariffs doubled in August as punishment for India buying sanctioned Russian oil. Putin defiantly alluded to that. We're ready to provide uninterrupted oil shipments to India, he promises. But Modi didn't mention oil directly in his statement, even as he talked up a move to expand trade with Russia by 2030.
Protecting the India-America relationship.
For this former diplomat, that caution makes perfect sense.
And we have to ensure that we do nothing with Russia that will give Trump another excuse to put blame on India.
Still, the visit gave New Delhi the chance to highlight its strategic autonomy. When in the country, there's a sense of affection towards Russia and anger against America for imposing tariffs seen as unreasonable.
The more Trump has doubled down on India, the more likely it has become that India will continue to invest in Russia.
The string of agreements and warmth of this visit will likely raise eyebrows in Washington, especially with American trade negotiators set to return to Delhi for another round of talks next week. But for many in India, it's a key signal that the country has options and won't necessarily buckle to U.S. pressure. Salima Shivji, CBC News, Mumbai.
As we alluded to earlier, the first round groups for the World Cup have been decided. The draw was at Washington's Kennedy Center. Team Canada's group mates in the high-profile soccer tournament are Switzerland, Qatar, and yet-to-be-determined playoff winner. They'll play a round robin with at least the top 2 teams advancing. Toronto and Vancouver are the Canadian venues. At the draw on Friday, Donald Trump received an award that the soccer's governing body has never made before, the FIFA Peace Prize. The president of soccer's governing body has cultivated a close relationship with the American president. The Canadian-born architect behind some of the world's most iconic buildings has died. Frank Gehry passed away at his home in Southern California at the age of 96 following a brief illness. Gehry's bold and daring designs made him one of the most recognizable architects in modern history. Havard Gould looks back at the legacy and life.
In the late 1990s, the Guggenheim Museum in Bilbao, Spain was built, with its waves of shining metal transforming a fading industrial city into an international destination. The stunning design also made Frank Gehry, then in his late 60s, the most recognized and sought-after architect in the world.
Well, it did get a lot of press, I'll tell you that. That caught me by surprise.
Gehry was born Ephraim Goldberg in Toronto, in a family struggling to make ends meet. As a child, he played with scraps of wood, making imaginary buildings and cities. After a time in Timmins, Ontario, the family moved to California, where Gehry, who endured anti-Semitism as a teenager, changed his name, worked as a truck driver, and studied.
I didn't know I wanted to be an architect until I took some classes in the art school.
As an architect, Gehry played with materials and designs in ways others wouldn't or couldn't. People say this building in Prague creates the impression of a couple dancing. Another in the U.S. includes a giant set of binoculars. He also created lamps that reflected a fascination with fish and used cardboard to make a line of furniture.
Furniture is the quick fix. You know, architecture takes so damn long.
True to his Canadian roots, Gehry would sometimes play hockey against architecture students before offering them feedback.
So, you know, I would push this here, and then it works, you see?
Gehry worked into his 90s, aware that he might not live to see some of his projects completed. He had critics. Some thought his buildings were too eccentric to be efficient. But around the world, Gehry's creations endure, continuing to challenge expectations and inspire. Havard Gould, CBC News, Toronto.
The Vatican has returned dozens of Indigenous artifacts to Canada a century after they were taken. Pope Leo handed over the items to the Canadian Conference of Catholic Bishops, which will return them to their original owners. Megan Williams has more.
The return of these objects really intensified in March 2022 when First Nations, Inuit, and Métis delegations traveled here to the Vatican to meet with Pope Francis and urge him to confront the Catholic Church's role in residential schools. That visit led to the Pope's journey of apology to Canada later that year. Now, today I spoke with Dwayne Smith, who is the CEO and chair of the Inuvialuit Regional Corporation, which had a lead role in these negotiations to repatriate the objects with the Vatican, the Canadian government, and the Canadian Conference of Catholic Bishops.
Well, originally it all just started with the discussions around the repatriation of the kayak, and then other artifacts began to get on the table.
A dozen or so of the returning items are Inuit, one or two are Métis, and the rest are First Nations. And it was the Vatican who decided the list of objects to be returned. Smith is overseeing their return. He says talks over the past year and a half, negotiations have been difficult at times. And while this return of the objects is framed as a church-to-church gift, it's going to the Canadian bishops first. Dwayne Smith says it's been a major achievement for Indigenous communities. The items are expected to land in Montreal at noon on Saturday, where Inuit, First Nations, and Métis leaders, along with representatives of the Canadian bishops, will welcome them. From there, the kayak and the other items will travel by truck to the Canadian Museum of History in Gatineau, where they'll be stored and examined before eventually continuing on to their home communities. Megan Williams, CBC News, the Vatican.
Researchers in Canada and the United States are looking into the idea of an unexpected benefit of group singing, one that could help stroke survivors find their voice again. Alison Northcott explains.
Singing together gives members of this choir a chance to use their voices. The singers have all suffered strokes and have developed a condition called aphasia, which affects the ability to speak. Now they're part of a study to see if singing can help their recovery.
We are hoping that this study will demonstrate that choir activity is really good for people, good for their language, but good for their social relation too.
The randomized controlled trial has sites in Montreal, Ottawa, Toronto, and Tampa Bay, Florida. The study involves 12 choir sessions for each group. Serge Balancic has had trouble writing and finding his words since his stroke in 2022. He hopes this study leads to more treatment options.
I like because it gives me occasion to speak, you see, and to find my old voice.
Researchers monitor heart rates and vocal range. It will take a few months for researchers to go through the data and determine if group singing helps improve language skills and quality of life for people with aphasia. Previous research suggests music may help parts of the brain not damaged by a stroke to improve communication through rhythm and pitch.
You want to make sure that...
But more studies are needed, says this stroke neurologist.
There is definitely evidence that these kind of therapies can work, and we will have to see how these trials will end up.
When they start singing, you could just see the soul free up, and it's just so magical to see how much music brings life back.
Balancic is optimistic and hopes others with his condition can one day benefit from an activity like this too. Alison Northcott, CBC News, Montreal.
Canada's main stock index ended the week lower, while U.S. markets rose Friday. Here's a look at the numbers as we head to break.
This weather update is brought to you in part by Atlantic Lottery's iGames. Play hundreds of games on the Atlantic Lottery app or at alc.ca.
All right, still processing that most recent blast of winter, and it's interesting in Halifax, little sprigs of grass. You can still see it through the snow. Other parts of the province, yeah, can't do that at all.
Yeah, for sure. And maybe adding a bit more to the snowbank as we look ahead to Monday. Some melting this weekend, especially Sundays. Temperatures will be bumping up, though. Have a look at our viewer picture of the day, first and foremost, and we talk about how cold it was. We're going back to Oak Island for the second time this week.
Oh, well, why not?
Yeah.
That is a beauty, isn't it?
Mark talking about, the sea smoke this morning. It was just super, super cold. He said, good on these two for heading out on a walk early this morning. And thanks to Mark for sharing this. Ryan's picks at cbc.ca. Temperatures near the freezing mark tomorrow, a little above the freezing mark in the southwest. Pretty close to the freezing mark central. The north and northeast, -2 for Cape Breton. And I should mention places like Amherst, likely only around -3 for tomorrow. A bit cooler up towards Cumberland County. Sunday, we're going to be in the +1 to +2 range with a chance for some showers and flakes. So let's run you through the timeline. And you can see that we've got a few flurries in the mix for Saturday afternoon. Into Saturday evening and the overnight, that little trough off to the west sweeps through with the front. And so we'll see the chance for showers and flurries Sunday morning, primarily across the mainland into the afternoon for Cape Breton. And then here comes that low we've been talking about throughout the program. So it comes into the Gulf. This model, the European model, not really spinning it into much. And so it kind of can pass harmlessly to our south without really having much of an impact. If the ID is closer to this solution, where when it moves into the Gulf of Maine, it develops earlier, then it spins up into a larger system. And this also is a closer track to the coastline, which would bring us a little more in the way of significant snowfall. Certainly an impactful system if this is the solution Monday. So stay tuned for updates.
We'll be checking back on that. All right. Thanks, Ryan. Well, some people somewhere may have caught a glimpse of the last supermoon of 2025. Yes, the lunar show lit up skies in several continents around the world. It looks brighter and bigger than usual as the moon's orbit moves closest to Earth.
And if you missed it, you'll get another chance if your skies are clear, as the moon will be nearly full again tonight. And it does look pretty good for parts of the province as the skies are clearing.
Good. Always impressive. That's it for us tonight. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Good night.